wrong way. Recently on the channel, I reviewed 5 Lunchbox or mini amplifiers, picking one that I thought clearly stood out from the others in terms of its feature set and, more importantly in my opinion, its ability to hang with an actual drummer. Because let's be real, if you're buying an amplifier, then you're probably looking to be loud and jam with other people, not just play with yourself. That sounds dirty, I should rewrite that line. So today we're going to compare these 5 specific amplifiers. I'll share with you their strengths and their weaknesses, test it in a real use case scenario with a living, breathing human drummer, as well as give you my opinion on where your money is best spent in this price range. And I already know what you're thinking.
Taylor, some of these amplifiers are not Lunchbox or mini amplifiers.
Well, the last video had a pretty wide range of mini amplifiers, and while it's really hard to make a video like this where I actually test these amplifiers and do more than 4 or 5 of them at a time, I did receive a lot of comments in that last video asking me to add various amplifiers to this list. So that's where all of these came from today. And for transparency, this video is not sponsored. All of these amplifiers were either purchased or are on loan to me. So if you do decide to buy one, use the links in the description or the pinned comment. It goes a long way to helping me keep making videos just like this one. There are so many mini amplifiers on the market, and especially when we start stepping into a higher price bracket. For example, the Marshall DSL and EVH Iconic are both sub $1,000 full-size tube amplifiers, and that can really convolute things. More options are good, but I just want to put it out there that in the price range we are looking at, there are a lot of options. But these are by and large the ones that were requested by you. And while there are still so many out there and seemingly more coming every day, I wanted to do my best to cover what's available and what you requested specifically. Well, mostly available. Let me break that down while I explain the contenders for this video. First is the EVH 5153 Stealth Lunchbox amp. It's a small 15-watt EL84 equipped amplifier, and if you saw the last video, you'll know why I'm putting an emphasis on the power tubes in this amp. In my experience, the tube selection and the accompanying transformers seem to be the main factor on whether or not it will hang with the drummer. This is one I normally wouldn't put in a list like this since they're only available on the used market now. I'll touch on that more when we get to that amplifier. What the f is this? But just know, if you want one of these, you are looking at buying them used at this point. Next, we have the Marshall Studio Classic JCM800 20-watt amplifier. This one is running EL34 power tubes, just like its larger counterparts. We'll see how much of a factor that is later. Next, we have sort of an oddball that I will be perfectly honest, I accidentally included in this video, the now infamous EVH 5153 50-watt amp head. When I was looking for Lunchbox amps for this video at 3 a.m., my tired eyes didn't realize I was ordering a 50-watt amp. However, it was requested quite a bit. It fits right in the middle of this price spread on these amplifiers, and it's still smaller than the full-sized head, so I decided to include it anyways. Oh, and it has full-size 6L6s, just like the badge implies. That's an EVH hypersonic joke. Never mind. Next, we have the highly requested Victory Kraken MK2. Don't let this amp size fool you. It is a 50-watt powerhouse, but despite being tied for highest wattage rating on this list, it's in second place for the smallest. Just a little beefy boy with a Napoleon complex. This amp runs off of 2 6L6s, by the way. And lastly, we have the Mesa Badlander 25. It's an EL84 equipped amplifier, but it has significantly more features than the others on this list. While I'm not going to go in depth on the features in this video, if that's something you want to see, make sure you are subscribed to my second channel because that video will be going up on that channel soon. Now, while one of the most requested amplifiers was actually the Mesa Mini Rectifier head, that's also one of the ones that's no longer available new, and I just couldn't find one used for a good price when I was buying amps for this video. Okay, so now you know a little bit about all the contenders for this video. Let's make some noise. I gotta unstack them. What's up, guys? We're plugged into the first amp here. This is the EVH Stealth Lunchbox amplifier. I'm probably messing that name up, but you get the idea. It's an EVH 5150 Stealth Lunchbox. Now, the reason that I didn't include this amplifier in the last video is you can't buy these amplifiers new anymore. They discontinued them. So if you want to buy one, you have to buy one used, and that experience can be a toss-up. That is why typically on a comparison-based video like this, I don't include used gear. The experience for the end user can be so dramatically different. You know what I mean? The price you end up paying, the condition it ends up arriving to you in. This is that 5150 Lunchbox head. Okay, this, I don't know what it is. What the f is this? It's just a bunch of tubes. I have a feeling they pull the tubes out of this Lunchbox head that they put in this massive box. Points for being thorough, I guess. So, yeah, all this for this little thing. If you look in here, you can see little pieces of masking tape with letters. And you might be thinking to yourself, huh, that's odd. That's not the way they come from the factory. Well, it's because they sent me another box that's this big, also overkill, for tubes, and all the tubes are labeled, so I need to put the tubes in this thing now. Put the head shell back on this and get to this fucking video. So it's very difficult for me to give you opinions on something like that, and that's why I don't do it. But you guys asked for this so much in the last video that I just felt like, yeah, I gotta include it. So that's why we have it plugged in. Let me explain the signal chain here real quick for all of these amplifiers. I'm using my Jackson Soloist. This has an EMG 81 in the bridge and an 85 in the neck. Pretty typical for me if you watch the channel. That is going into the Devil from my company, Obsidian Audio. I actually, look, I wore my shirt today too. It's going into the Devil from my company, Obsidian Audio. This is a Tube Screamer style overdrive with built-in gate and a bunch of extra bells and whistles. If you want information on that, it's down in the comments. I play with the boost all the time. That's why we're using it. This is just my normal setup, pretty much, unless I'm using plugins or, you know, a modeler or something. That is going into the EVH Stealth Lunchbox right now, but whatever amplifier we happen to have here at the time, that is going into my Mesa Boogie 4x12 cabinet that is being mic'd up with an SM57 and a Voodoo Ribbon 1 microphone. There's no post-processing anything, like I might have to cut a little bit of the low end, but that's it. Like I'm not, you know, punching up the audio for any of these things. I'm trying to give you as raw of a comparison as possible so you can make a decision for yourself if you're interested in any one of these. We will be going through these amplifiers in order of budget. So this being the cheapest one, you can usually find these used for, you know, $500 to $600. They seem to be less common now, but you know, they still pop up. They usually pop up for about $500 to $600. I probably don't need a full spec read in this video, but I should probably give you the key features of each one, yeah? This is the EVH 5153 Lunchbox head, the stealth variant of the Lunchbox head specifically. It is a mostly all-tube amplifier. I'll explain here in 1 second. It has two channels, a green channel, which is listed as clean, and a red, which is full burn. Both these channels share a tone stack, but they each have their own independent gain and master volume knobs. And they also share a presence and resonance control. The resonance control is on the back of the amp. It is a 15-watt EL84 equipped amplifier. It also comes equipped with 412AX7 tubes, but features a solid-state rectifier. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said all-tube kinda. And originally these listed for $749.99 and came with a foot switch. However, if you're buying it on the used market, you know, who knows if it's gonna come with a foot switch or not. Oh, we also need a... Now, I am getting out this decibel meter here. This is just to have something here for reference. We will test this out in a live band rehearsal situation with a drummer that's hitting very loudly to see how all of these amplifiers hold up, because that is the real test for me, especially if you're buying an amplifier like this. It's really cool that they have a lot of features, but to me, if you're buying an amplifier, you're probably buying it because you want to jam with other people. So it's important for me to test it out in that scenario. That way I can give you my honest criticisms and feedback on that. With all of that being said, none of these amplifier companies have any say in this video. None of them are sponsoring it. But if you would like to support the channel, you can use the links in the description. Those are affiliate links. They help the channel. They don't cost you anything extra. And like, you know, I really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Yeah, man, it's metal as f, dude. You know, we can probably dial back these mids here a little bit later. I like this amplifier a lot. Let's turn off the overdrive. Now, I just want to do a test. We're going to see how loud this gets before it starts kind of hitting the ceiling. You'll be able to tell. It'll start getting like compressed and squishy sounding. So if you can hear that, once we start getting to 3/4 of the volume here, which seems very loud, and our you know, decibel meter would also indicate that that's very loud, but we'll have to test that out. The only way to know that for sure is with an actual drummer, right? It seems to be getting louder, but what's happening actually are the mids are pushing and you're losing like all the definition and clarity. Like it's just getting very muddy and compressed sounding, you know? So even at this volume, we still have a lot of that definition and clarity, but if we just go up a little bit, and you can really tell when we get to there. So, you know, it's just something to keep in mind, but you know, like I said, the only way we're gonna be able to test it for sure is to go test it with an actual drummer. Okay, now we're plugged into the JCM800 Studio. This is the second most expensive on this list, and it's by quite a bit. This is the Marshall JCM800. They refer to it as a Studio Classic 20, but essentially it's a 20-watt JCM800. It is a single channel 20-watt tube amplifier. It also has a 5-watt setting. It has 3 12AX7 preamp tubes, but more importantly, 2 full-size EL34 power tubes. And if you're familiar with the JCM800, we pretty much have all of the same features aside from the power dampening that we would have on the actual amplifier. It has a 3-band EQ with a presence control. You have a high and low input. On the back, you have an effects loop and a DI out. I mean, it really is like they took the shrink ray from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and just shrank the Marshall JCM800 to a 20-watt form factor. So we went from $500, $600 used, $750 new when they were manufactured new in the EVH 5153 Lunchbox Stealth to the Marshall JCM800 Studio, which lists for $1349 at the time making this video. So big step up, but we also have a big step up in tubes as well, because this is not EL84 powered. This is full-size EL34 powered, just like its big brothers, the 50-watt and 100-watt JCM 800 series. And it's still a 20-watt amplifier, but I immediately noticed plugging it in, it's like very much louder. And in terms of sound, it does sound quite a bit like the full-size amplifiers. It's got that same dryness. Either way though, this is an amp that absolutely needs a boost, in my opinion. I love this tone a lot. It's wildly different. Like the 5150 is very girthy, more scooped, modern or American, if you want to use those terms. It's a very, you know, it's a more scooped sort of sound with a lot more low end, a lot more like attack in the high end, where, you know, the Marshall is a very like traditional rock and roll sound with, you know, kind of like a pushed mids sort of thing. You know, for stuff like that, very fast metally tremolo-y type stuff, you almost need to scoop the Marshall. Maybe a little bit more saturation. But it's still not there, you know what I mean? It's not, even if you turn the, you know, just for shits and giggles, let's turn the bass up all the way. Actually sounds really good. But, you know, it's just not the same thing. It's like not quite the same. It still sounds very much like a Marshall. But this is why it's one of my favorite amplifiers to boost, because god damn do you get such a mean metal tone out of it that really fits in a mix really well. So let's see, I'm gonna do the thing again. I gotta go get earplugs. It's too loud. Okay. Okay, I do have earplugs in, so if I'm talking weird, it's because I have earplugs in while I'm doing this test, okay? Let's see how loud this gets before we start hitting the in the headroom. Okay, so you know, we're not really having that problem with this amplifier. However, it doesn't quite get as loud, maybe, as the smaller ones that do hit the headroom and just push the mids through, you know, get more squishy, if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so good to know. Okay, this amplifier needs no introduction. This is the EVH 5153 50 watt. You know, this thing's been around for quite a while. It's a very iconic sound, which is funny because they made an amp called the EVH 5153 iconic later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the EVH 5153 50 watt 6L6 head in ivory. It is a 3-channel 50 watt tube head with 7 12AX7 preamp tubes and 2 6L6 power tubes. Channels 1 and 2 share a tone stack. Channel 3 has its own tone stack. Channels 1 and 2 do have their own independent gain and volume controls. We do have a master presence. We do have a master resonance. It is on the back of the amplifier. It has a 1/4-inch headphone output. It has 2 parallel speaker outputs. It has an effects loop. It has MIDI in and out. It comes with a 4-button foot switch that will switch in between channels or turn the effects loop on and off. And it's just a classic and truly iconic amplifier that I think everyone is familiar with at this point. Honestly, one of the funny things about this is I was talking to one of my friends that has this amplifier, seems to know it pretty well, and he told me that the thing he doesn't like about it is that he hits the headroom and it gets squishy, which is funny to me because despite being in the middle of these amplifiers price-wise, these actually come in at $13.99, you know, and it's the only 50 watt, full-size 50 watt amplifier on this tier list. Okay, now I already know I like this amplifier, but you know, we're just going to run it on the blue channel for right now. It's just a sound that I know I really like, really saturated, pretty compressed, you know, just really, really good one. Good for boosting. Let's boost the blue channel here. Just for shits and gigs though, let's go to the red channel. We might use the red channel. When I test these in a live scenario later, I want to do it without a boost because I want to be just really objective about the amplifiers themselves, even though I do prefer to play any high gain amplifier with a boost pedal. You know, I just wanted to do that just so I could judge the amplifiers on their own merits and give you a more informed opinion on them. But let's go to the red channel here. Yeah, I love this thing, dude. The red channel sounds really, really great. I don't think I'm gonna be able to really do the volume test in here. I think it's just gonna be too loud, but you know, I'll try as much as I can. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can tell, but it does hit the ceiling there. It definitely does. But it takes a lot longer too, and when it does hit the ceiling, it's at a much louder volume. I don't even have my, I always forget something. It does take a lot longer to get there, and when it does get there, it's at a much louder volume. Sitting next to it, it's quite a bit louder than the other amplifiers, but we're gonna have to try this in that live scenario to see if that translates, because it's hard to tell just sitting next to it. Even with this gauge, it's really hard to tell. It feels really overpowering, but that might not be the case. I don't know. We'll have to get there and see what happens. Okay, I feel like we've done enough with this, yeah? All right, now we're plugged into the Victory Kraken. This is the MK2 version. This is the Victory Kraken MK2 50 watt Lunchbox amplifier. It is a 50 watt 3-channel amplifier. It does have a 9 watt setting. It features 4 12AX7 preamp tubes and 2 6L6 or EL34, this one has 6L6s in it, power tubes. It has an effects loop. It comes with a foot switch to switch it between channels. You also have 2 master gains that you can foot switch between. Foot switch between. That sounds better, we're going with that. And all of that amplifier can be had at the time of making this video for $16.99. And despite being tied for the most expensive amplifier on this list at $1,699 at the time of, making this video, it is the second smallest. Like actually, here, look, let me just compare. Here's the EVH 5153 Lunchbox for size comparison. So slightly larger, smaller than the MT15, if you're familiar with that amplifier. It has sort of like that Marshall vibe going on, British, if you want to call it that, mid-pushed, I would refer to it as. But the saturation sounds modern. Let's dial this quite a bit different though. There you go, you just crank the gain and not only does the amp get more noisy, but you get really modern, aggressive sound. Even my noise gate's not really helping. This is a very noisy amplifier. I like the sound of it a lot. I think it's very reminiscent of the MT15 to me, if you guys are familiar with that amplifier. But how's it gonna hold up against the others? We're gonna have to crank it and find out. Now, this is a 50 watt amplifier, so it is very loud. Same thing with the volume test here. I feel like my neighbors gonna hate me today. It feels like it starts hitting it at about noon there. It's starting to get more and more compressed, but you do have the full range of the volume on this one, whereas a lot of these amplifiers, you get it to that point where it hits the headroom, and then all you're doing is like adjusting the squish, essentially. Now, last but certainly not least in price or relevance, we are plugged into the Mesa Badlander 25. This is an EL84 amplifier. So right away, I don't expect this to compete with the 50 watt full tube size amplifier, even the Studio Classic JCM800. But it is feature rich by comparison. This is the Mesa Boogie Rectifier Badlander 25. That is not a great name for an amplifier. They should rethink that one. But this is the Mesa Boogie Badlander 25. It belongs in their Rectifier series of amplifiers. It is a 2-channel 25 watt head. It does have a 10 watt setting as well. And I feel like 2 channels is kind of undercutting it, because in those 2 channels, you have 3 styles for each channel. So you can have a clean channel. I'm gonna refer to these in colors, even though that's not the way they're labeled on the Badlander, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what dual rectifiers are, you know what the colors are. You can have a green channel on one and an orange channel on the other, or green channel on one, red channel, orange channel, red channel. If you don't want any clean tones, the world's your oyster. You just pick and choose what you want. It has 5 12AX7 preamp tubes and 2 EL4 power tubes. I'm a little concerned with the power tubes. That's not my favorite choice, but moving on. It has an independent 3-band EQ for each channel. You have a presence for each channel, as well as a master volume for each channel. I really like that all of the controls are separate for each of the channels. And I normally don't point this out on amps, maybe I should, but it is a 19-pound amplifier. It's very, very light. And it does include a slip cover also. And for all of that amplifier and things, you're gonna pay $16.99 at the time of making this video. Yeah, it sounds like a rectifier, dude. Badlander comes with a bunch of different features in it, but it does very much keep the character of... Now, saying the character of a rectifier is kind of a loaded thing, right? Because there's a bunch of different revisions. I mean, even, you know, rectifiers in the same revision can sound quite a bit different. Most of my experience is with either the Rev G or the Rev C series. And I would say that this reminds me, you know, of kind of both of them. The Rev C, at least the one that I played, comparing it to the Rev G, had significantly less low end, and the Rev G was a lot more, it needed help to kind of get the low end sculpted and under control a little bit. This is somewhere in between those. It has a good full low end, but it's not overly woofy sounding, you know, or overly muddy. Here, let's just show you full gain. It sounds awesome like that, dude, I think. I mean, it sounds very, very death metal to me. Let's boost that, yeah? Let's test out the volume on this guy here. I'm gonna put my ear pluggies in. Let's see what happens. So we get squishy really, really fast there. And that was a little bit of my fear with this amplifier being an EL84 amplifier. This is very loud right now, sitting next to it sucks. This is why I hesitate with the meter sometimes. You look at this meter and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of decibels, man. That's as loud as a jet engine or whatever, and it's really not. These meters sometimes I feel like are less helpful than they are helpful. But it's nice to have something there for reference in between all of the different amplifiers and whatnot. But I would say this is too loud to be next to comfortably and play. I don't know if it's gonna hang with the drum set though. You know, and beyond that, we're just getting like squishier. So yeah, that is what it is. Okay, so there's a few things I need to explain about this part that you just watched. For whatever reason, when I went to record this part, The idea that I had in my head was to push these amps to where they started to get squishy rather than just seeing how loud they could get overall. So what I'm showing you right now is the settings on each one of the amplifiers where I had it set when I was playing it. And really, I think most of the amps probably performed how you would expect them to. The EL84s were the quietest. The JCM800 Studio was the next quietest.
It was like not very loud. I had it at its max volume there.
And the 50-watt amplifiers were the loudest.
This one's not bad, but it almost sounded like it was gating. Like it was gating my notes. I don't know. They were losing steam.
Although I could have pushed the 5153 louder. Just for whatever reason, when I was in the room at the time, I pushed it to where it started to get squishy sounding, and you know, I probably could have got away with it a little bit more. Now, something else that's probably important for context here is all of these amps were powering a Mesa 4x12, very similar to the one that I have in my room for the demos. The only difference is it is a slanted variant. So if you take all of that at face value and compare to the demo where I show the amps and where their volume limits are, I think you can kind of understand what's going on here. Obviously, the Victory Kraken sounds the loudest out of the bunch. That's probably to be expected. But in fairness, I think like the EVH 5153 50-watt kind of got the raw end of the deal on this one, so I just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, so let me break down my experience with all of these amplifiers and tell you which one I think rises above the rest. Something that's really actually hard to do in this video for a few reasons. The EVH 5153 Stealth Lunchbox is a little powerhouse. I love how small this thing is and how awesome it sounds at low volumes. I'm using the term low relative here. When you start pushing it, it does what almost every other EL84 equipped amplifier does in my experience. It just gets really compressed and overall unpleasant to listen to. I believe the industry term is farty. There's also the experience of buying it used, which can vary wildly in price and quality. I think I got an okay deal. I bought this one around $550 if I remember correctly. It is something that I have to mention. If you get a great deal on one and you don't need to keep up with drums, then as far as the tone goes, I think it rules. Next is the JCM800 Studio. This amplifier is great and I think it's named perfectly. If you want that sweet, sweet JCM800 tone, but just for the studio and not melting faces, then this is the one for you. It's a one-trick pony. Well, technically it has a low power mode, so I guess it's a two-trick pony, but it's still a beautifully simplistic amplifier. And it did mostly a good job of hanging with the drummer. However, you're still gonna hit the ceiling if you play with a drummer that hits hard. And while the ceiling is less farty than its EL84 equipped opponents, it's still not as satisfying as playing through a full-size variant. As the name implies, if you want a smaller, lighter JCM800 for studio use, this is your amp. Moving on to the 5153 50-watt amplifier. This amp is a great value for what it does. I actually saw a used one listed recently on Guitar Center for like $700, which is kind of nuts, but I was a little surprised with how fast this amplifier hit its ceiling. This wasn't dissimilar to the 50-watt Archon that I tried in my MT15 video, if you guys remember that. Similarly, the Archon 50 kind of lost out to the MT15, which just goes to show you that wattage is only part of the story. But it absolutely will technically hang with the drummer. You're just going to be pushing your power section a little harder than I would personally like for an amp that's closer to a full-size head. All in all though, there's a reason these things are popular. They sound awesome and they are relatively inexpensive for what they are. As for the Victory Kraken MK2, this amp is tied for most expensive on this list, and it's also one of the smallest. While that might seem great on the surface, it was an extremely noisy amplifier. If you're going to buy this one and play loud with high gain, get a noise gate to put in the loop. It is an absolute requirement to kill the hiss this thing produces. While I think this one sounds awesome, and it's nice to have 3 channels and some extra bells and whistles, it feels overpriced to me, especially when you compare it to the similarly sized MT15 from the last video. Now, big caveat here. These are made in England, and I'm sure that the tariffs and the dollar to pound conversion have a lot to do with the price. My audience is primarily based in the US along with me, so I have to base my recommendations off of that experience. So sure, the Victory Kraken has more stuff. It even has an extra channel, but are you going to use any of that? And for double the money and probably 4x the noise, I just have a hard time recommending this one. I know fans of this amplifier are going to hate this, but I think that in the States at least, it's not the best deal out there. It is, however, very loud and was on par with the EVH 50-watt in terms of total volume output. Then lastly, we had the Mesa Badlander 25. I actually surprisingly really liked this amp. I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it based off it being an EL84 amp, but the experience was really enjoyable, something you'll be able to see in full on my second channel soon. However, on the flip side, those EL84s are definitely a limitation with the drummer, and as much as I loved the sound of this amp, if you're going for something compact that keeps up with the drummer, this one's kind of hard to recommend, especially at the $1,700 price tag they're asking for it. Now, to give credit where it's due, it is feature rich. You have 2 wattage modes, 2 channels, the ability to load your own IRs for each channel, and the fact that you can customize each channel with 3 selectable modes makes this one another valuable studio tool. You can also run this amp without a load or a cabinet for silent recording, and to be honest, much like the JCM800, I think that's really where this thing shines. So the TLDR, which one of these is the standout I would pick? This one is much trickier than the last video. Last time the MT15 and the 𝗲𝗶𝗹 were just leagues above the others in terms of the live test, and the MT15 had big points for price and the 𝗲𝗶𝗹 had big points for features. I'd say that the best value in this video is actually the EVH 5153 50 watt. But if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I'd probably still pick the 𝗲𝗶𝗹 from our last video over it just based off its feature set. I also found the 𝗲𝗶𝗹 to be less compressed and more pleasing at higher volumes, even though those volume outputs were really similar. But strictly this list, the standout to me was the Badlander 25, and this is purely subjective. I just enjoyed this one the most. I'm actually having a really hard time sending this one back and not just keeping it for myself. While it sort of kept up with the drummer, at least as good as any EL84 amp I've tested thus far, where it shines is just the versatility and recreation of that classic rectifier tone. It's not cheap, but it's significantly less than its full-size counterparts if the tones are the only thing you're after. All right, I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to see something specifically, let me know down in the comments. If you really like what I do here, you could join these wonderful people on Patreon for behind the scenes and early access. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.